I'm here with Jim Grenke from Trout Wells, and I want to talk about wells and water quality and answer maybe some common questions that you get working in the field.
Absolutely.
Let's start with what's the difference between a sandpoint well and a drilled well?
So sandpoint well is a type of a well that's accessing a surface aquifer. It's constructed by a perforated pipe that is driven into the ground, and on top of what people commonly refer to as hard pan, or usually a layer of clay. In many areas there's surface water that exists. A sandpoint well will access that type of water. A drilled well most commonly goes below that layer of clay and accesses a water formation, usually in a layer of sand, that is somewhere deeper in the surface. When you produce water from that well, a drilled well has what they refer to as a submersible pump. The pump is down in the well, underwater, whereas a sandpoint well brings water to the surface with a pump that is at the surface. Common term for that is called jet pump.
So is the quality of water any better with one versus the other?
Most typically, we're going to regard the drilled well as better water quality because the sandpoint well, because it is near the surface, is influenced by a lot of surface activity. So runoff, irrigation, septic systems, if they are faulty, they can certainly affect sandpoint wells. Agricultural practices, all of those things can be a factor in the quality of the water in the sandpoint well. If you go below what again is referred to as hard pan, or officially defined as a confining layer of clay, then that protects that underground water from that surface activity. Now there might be issues with that underground water, but not influenced by the surface, and so generally those underground formations are regarded as a better source of water.
And I know as a realtor, when you have a buyer who's buying a house that has a well, the lender always requires a water test.
Yes.
To look for nitrates and
the most common
bacteria.
ones we find are requests for tests on nitrates and coliform bacteria. Depending on the lender or the underwriter of that loan for the buyer, there may be other requests, and we always emphasize for someone who wants to get their water tested, which is a very, very important thing to do, get the underwriter to define what the parameters are that they want tested.
Okay, so if a person's not buying or selling and is living in a home that does have a well, how often do you recommend that they have a water test done?
The Health Department of Minnesota suggests that it be done annually, and we support that. If you have a clean water test and there's been no influencing factors that you're concerned about, can you go years in between water tests? You could. The more frequently you test your water is the more accurate picture you'll have on if there are any changes or what's happening with that water.
If you're drinking that water and giving it to your kids, it's a good idea.
If you're drinking that water, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
And even if there aren't any red flags that you find, as we will never tell, treating the water for a private well owner is a bad idea because they don't have the luxury that municipal customers have, for example, who have that water monitored by their supplying service every day.
That's great information. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to tell buyers or sellers?
Well, the drinking water is just one aspect of it. If you were looking at buying a home, is you want to be on the lookout for any telltale staining in toilets or fixtures. That can be an indication of iron in the water. That's very common in our area. Hardness in the water is a given on any well, and municipal wells have hardness as well. But on a private well, I've been at this many years and have seen maybe 2 wells ever that did not have a significant amount of hardness in it that would need to be treated by a water softener. So you want to inspect on whether the water softener is operating properly. If it's beyond 15, 20 years old, you're probably looking at replacement of that equipment. Sometimes multiple water treatment stages need to take place just depending on that water quality. And one indication of that might be those stains I was referring to.
This was very useful. Thank you so much for your time.
Sure.
Really appreciate it.
Okay.